What would you do if a garment passed down through generations disappeared the day after a funeral, only to return with ominous consequences? Lan is about to discover that some family heirlooms carry more than just memories, they carry curses. It was a family curse, they thought. But they would soon learn that it was no mere superstition. It was a relentless, horrifying truth that clung to them, like the suffocating weight of the night, pressing closer with every breath they took. The first disappearance occurred when the old matriarch, Mylin, passed away. Her death was not unexpected, she had been ill for months. But what happened afterward was beyond anyone's understanding. On the morning after the funeral, as relatives gathered in the family home, an unsettling discovery was made. The traditional mourning garment, a black robe passed down through generations, had vanished from the place where it had been left the night before. At first, it was written off as a mistake. Maybe it had been misplaced, moved to another room in the chaos of the day. But as days turned into weeks, the questions grew louder. Where had it gone? Who had taken it? It wasn't until the next funeral that the horror began. When Min, the eldest son of Mylin, lost his wife to a tragic accident, the same mourning garment, that cursed robe, appeared again, but only for a short while. And that time, it was worn by a family member. The family believed the worst was over. But Min would never return home from the funeral. His body was discovered in a ditch the following morning, drained of life, his face locked in an expression of sheer terror. The family, gripped by fear, tried to ignore the whispers that spread like wildfire in the small village. No one dared to speak of it openly, but the rumors lingered in the corners of the house. Whispers about the mourning garment, a piece of clothing that was said to bring death to whoever wore it, always when the funeral was least expected. It wasn't long before Min's young sister, Lan, found the garment once more. And this time, as she prepared to bury her brother, she found herself pulled into the same haunting cycle of death. The garment was cursed, of that much she was certain. But who or what cursed it? And why did it always seek the next victim? The search for answers would take Lan down a dark, twisted path, one that would reveal a terrifying truth far worse than anything she could have imagined. It was not just the garment that was cursed, it was the family itself, tied to an ancient pact, a deal made long ago, one that they could never escape. The wind howled through the cracked windows of Ian's childhood home, rattling the frames with an unnerving insistence. She had been back here for less than a week, and already the place felt more like a tomb than a house. The familiar creaks of the wooden floorboards, the dust settled in the corners of the rooms, the scent of incense lingering from the recent funeral, it all reminded her of what she had lost. Of what she was about to lose. Lan had been called back to the village after her brother Min's tragic death. The authorities had labeled it an accident, a senseless fall caused by a drunken stupor, but Lan wasn't so sure. There had been no alcohol found in his system, no sign that he had stumbled. Only the same look of terror frozen on his face that she had seen once before. That same expression. The one that came from staring death in the face, but knowing there was no escape. The night before the funeral, Lan had gone through the motions of mourning, like every member of her family had before. They prayed at the altar, made offerings, and silently wept. It wasn't until later that evening, when she went to prepare the ceremonial robes for the burial, that she realized something was horribly wrong. The mourning garment, the black robe that had been worn by every family member for generations, was gone. It had disappeared, just like it had after her grandmother's funeral, just like it had after Mylin's death. Lan had checked the closet where it was always kept, then the hallway. She even checked the back garden, just to make sure it hadn't been misplaced in the frenzy of preparations. But it was nowhere to be found. Her heart raced. The feeling was creeping back. The same feeling she had felt when Min had died. Something was wrong. Something was watching her. A soft whisper broke her concentration. "Lan," her cousin Mai called from the doorway, her voice shaking. Did you find it? Lan turned to face her. Mai was standing there, her face pale, her hands wringing the hem of her sleeve. No. I can't find it, Lan replied, her voice strained. It's gone. Again. Mai stepped closer, her eyes darting nervously around the room. Do you think it's back? Lan swallowed hard. She knew exactly what Mai was referring to. The mourning garment was never just an old tradition. There were stories, ones whispered when no one was around to hear, stories about how the garment would disappear when it was time for the next funeral. Stories about how anyone who wore it would meet an untimely and mysterious death. Min's death had been proof of that. His lifeless body had been discovered at the foot of the hill, his fingers clenched as though he had tried to grip onto anything before being taken. Lan stared at the empty space where the robe should have been. Her fingers curled into a fist, the dread coiling in her stomach. I'm going to find it, she said, her voice sharp with resolve. I have to. If I don't, who else will it claim? Mai's face tightened, her eyes haunted by the terror they both shared. What if it's too late? What if it already found the next one? Lan couldn't answer. The words choked in her throat. The thought of it, the robe, that cursed garment, seeking out the next person to wear it was too much to bear. As she reached for the door, her hand froze, gripping the handle with a sudden chill. A soft rustling sound came from the shadows at the far end of the hallway. Ian's breath caught in her chest, and her heart pounded like a drum. She turned slowly, trying to steady herself. The house had grown colder in the last few minutes, the air thick with tension. There was no reason for the rustling. The house was still, too still. Then, in the dim light of the hallway, she saw it. The mourning garment was hanging on the coat rack by the entrance. Its black fabric seemed to shimmer in the flickering light of the nearby lantern, as though it had just appeared from nowhere. Lan took a step back, her hands trembling as she reached out to touch it. The fabric felt wrong. Like it was alive, breathing in a way that no cloth should. It wasn't just the weight of it, it was the sensation that something was watching her, waiting for her to make the next move. Her fingers brushed the hem, and suddenly, the room was filled with a sound faint at first, like a distant whisper, then growing louder, a deep hum reverberating from the walls, the floor, the very air. The sound seemed to come from everywhere, as though it were alive, as though it were reaching out to her. The whispering grew clearer, as if it were saying something. Something in a language she didn't understand. Her heart raced. Lan stumbled back, eyes wide in horror. The robe, it wasn't just an object. It was something else, something far older, something far more terrifying. In that moment, she knew that the garment was not just cursed. It was a prison, a force that had trapped her family for generations, feeding off their fear and their mourning. And now, it had returned for her. The whispers were growing louder, and in the distance, a figure appeared in the hallway, shadowy and indistinct, but unmistakably there. Lan tried to scream, but no sound came from her throat. She could only watch, paralyzed in fear, as the figure took a step closer. The figure raised its hand, and the mourning garment seemed to flutter, as if beckoning to her, waiting to be worn. Lan stood frozen in place, the creeping chill of terror washing over her like a tidal wave. The figure in the hallway moved slowly, deliberately. It was a silhouette, its shape undefined, like something half-formed, constantly shifting. She could see nothing but the outline of it, the way it absorbed the faint light from the lantern, making the shadows in the hallway stretch unnaturally long. Her breath hitched in her chest, and her fingers went numb against the handle of the mourning garment. The whispers seemed to come closer, resonating with a dissonance that made her entire body tremble. The figure's movement was fluid, almost as if it were gliding across the floor. Every step it took seemed to stretch the silence in the house, making the walls feel as though they were closing in on her. Ian's heart pounded against her ribs, but her legs wouldn't move. She could hear her cousin Mai's muffled voice from the doorway, but it felt distant, muffled as if underwater. Mai had to have seen it too. They both must be trapped in this nightmare. The figure stopped, its form barely visible in the dim light, yet Lan could feel its eyes on her. Or perhaps, it wasn't eyes. Whatever this thing was, it was beyond human. Then, as if pulling her out of a trance, the whispers stopped abruptly. In the silence that followed, the figure raised its hand, and slowly, almost reverently, it reached out for the mourning garment. Lan could feel her throat tightening, as if the very air in the room was being sucked away, leaving her gasping for breath. The robe seemed to sway as though alive, drawing itself closer to her, beckoning her to wear it. There was no question now. She knew that whoever wore it would never live to see another day. It was inevitable. Before she could think or act, the figure moved again, reaching toward her with a ghostly, skeletal hand, its fingertips brushing her cheek. The cold was so intense, it burned. Her pulse raced. "No," she shouted, but the voice was weak, hollow. The figure didn't flinch. It didn't even seem to register her resistance. It simply pulled the robe off the coat rack and held it out, the fabric shimmering unnaturally in the dim light. Ian's gaze locked on it. The black robe, now in the figure's hands, seemed to pulse as if alive. Something within the garment was calling her, pulling her closer with an invisible force. It was as if the robe had its own will, its own hunger, and she could no longer deny it. The figure's lips parted, but no words came out. It only held the garment out toward her, patiently waiting for her to surrender. "Please, don't," Lan whispered, unable to tear her eyes away from it. Mai's voice cut through the tension, shaking, desperate. "Lan, don't touch it. It'll..." But it was too late. Without her consent, without her permission, Ian's fingers reached out toward the robe. It felt like a magnet pulling her, her hand moving on its own accord. The moment her fingers made contact with the fabric, everything around her exploded into a deafening silence. A coldness flooded her veins as if she had just been dunked in ice water. The room twisted, bending in impossible angles. The walls seemed to pulsate and undulate, as though the house itself were alive. The figure loomed over her, its presence pressing down on her chest, suffocating her. Her mind screamed, but her body refused to listen. The robe, the cursed mourning garment, was already halfway over her shoulders. The fabric seemed to sink into her skin, cold, relentless, tightening around her neck like a noose. In that moment, Lan realized with absolute horror that she was no longer in control of her actions. The garment had claimed her. The house around her seemed to disappear, and she found herself standing at the edge of a vast, empty void. A thick fog swallowed up everything in sight, and in the distance, she could hear the faint, echoing cries of people. No, not people, voices of the lost, trapped in the endless limbo of the garment's curse. Suddenly, the shadowed figure spoke, its voice more a growl than words. "It's your turn now. You will wear it, as they did." Lan struggled to free herself, but the robe's grip tightened, binding her to the figure. She could no longer move, no longer speak. Her body seemed to betray her, unwilling to break free from the pull. The fabric was no longer just a piece of clothing, it was an anchor to something darker, something ancient. Through the haze of fog, Lan could barely make out shapes, faint shadows moving in the mist. People who had once worn the robe, now nothing more than lost souls forever bound to its curse. "No. I don't want this," she cried, her voice cracking, but the words felt hollow in the vastness of the fog. The figure remained silent, watching her as the robe continued to constrict around her. Then, it spoke again, its voice a chilling whisper. "You will die, unless you pass it on. The robe never sleeps, and neither can you. Ian's heart twisted in her chest. Pass it on. The words echoed in her mind, mixing with the grotesque whispers that seemed to come from every direction. She knew then what she had to do. It wasn't just the curse of the garment that kept it alive. It was the cycle. The cursed robe needed to be worn by the next victim, the next mourner, the next person to embrace death. Suddenly, Lan was pulled back to the present, the fog around her dissipating like smoke. She was back in the room. Mai was standing before her, her eyes wide with terror. Lan? Lan, what's happening? What's going on? Lan opened her mouth to speak, but the words died in her throat. The robe, still tight against her body, seemed to pulse in rhythm with her racing heartbeat. It was far too late to escape. She tried to tear it off, but the fabric refused to move. It was as if it had melded with her skin, her very soul. Her eyes shifted to Mai, and she could see the terror mirrored in her cousin's face. Mai's eyes darted to the robe. No, no, don't do it, Mai whispered, but Lan could already feel it. The pull. The inevitable cycle was beginning again. The curse of the mourning garment was never meant to be broken. It had taken Min. It had taken her grandmother. And now, it had taken her. And with it, the hunger began again. Lan couldn't speak. The weight of the mourning garment was crushing her, but it wasn't just the fabric. It was the sheer presence of it. The black cloth, cold as death itself, seemed to burn against her skin, almost like it was draining her energy. With every passing second, it felt as if her soul was being slowly consumed by the curse embedded in the robe. Mai's frantic voice broke through the haze of Ian's mind. Lan, we need to get you out of here. Please. Please, take it off. It's not too late. We can. But Lan couldn't hear her. She could barely register Mai's words through the fog that had settled over her senses. The whispers, the unearthly growls, the screeching sound that seemed to vibrate in her bones, all intensified. The air was thick with it. Her vision blurred, and for a moment, she thought she saw faces twisted, contorted, staring back at her with hollow eyes. Some were familiar, others were nothing more than strangers, their expressions etched with a terrible, quiet resignation. They were wearing the same robe. Some wore it willingly, others, as she had, were forced to wear it. They were trapped in a cycle that had no end. The room around her felt smaller. The walls seemed to pulse with the rhythm of her heartbeat. Each beat of her heart was in sync with the sinister whispers echoing in the darkness. It's your turn now, it's your turn now, the voices hummed in unison. Mai reached out, her hand trembling as she touched the robe. Lan, please. You're scaring me. We can burn it. We can destroy it. Ian's mind screamed for freedom, but the robe seemed to laugh at her desperation. It was too late. She could feel its insidious power already claiming her, a presence seeping into her very soul, cold and relentless. No, you don't understand, Lan gasped, finally breaking free of the paralysis that had gripped her. Her voice was barely a whisper. It won't stop. It never stops. Mai recoiled, her face pale. What do you mean? What's happening? Lan. The lights flickered, and for a moment, the entire house seemed to hold its breath. In that split second, Lan saw it, the shadow in the corner of the room, moving. It was tall, its limbs long and thin, and its form was a mass of shifting darkness. It didn't belong. It wasn't a person. Ian's heart pounded in her chest as the figure stepped forward. The air grew colder, and the whispers became louder, more urgent. It was here. Mai backed away, her eyes wide with terror. What the hell is that? She screamed, but the words barely left her lips before the figure lunged. Ian's body reacted on instinct. She reached out, grabbing Mai's wrist, pulling her back. Run, she screamed, her voice raw with panic. "Run. Don't let it touch you." Mai fought against her grip, her eyes wild with fear. "We can't just leave. What is that thing?" But it was too late. The shadow lunged forward, its movements unnatural and inhuman. The instant it made contact with Lan, she felt a sharp, searing pain in her chest. It felt as if her heart was being pulled from her body. Her vision blurred as the figure's cold presence flooded her mind. The whispering grew louder, and Lan felt herself being pulled into it. Her breath came in ragged gasps as the shadow seemed to absorb her, pulling her closer to the dark void that hovered just beyond her sight. And then, she saw it. The endless cycle. The faces. The empty, hollow eyes of those who had gone before her, trapped within the robe. Their screams, their cries for help, their pain. All of it crashing into her mind at once. The cycle had always been this way. The robe found its next victim. It didn't care who they were, where they came from, or how much they fought. The garment was hungry, and it would consume anyone who wore it. Forever. Ian's vision darkened, and she felt herself slipping away, her body going cold. She could hear Mai's voice, faint now, calling her name, but it was distant. Far away. And then, as if from a great distance, she heard a loud snap. When Lan awoke, she was lying on the floor, the robe still clinging to her body. The house around her was eerily silent, as though nothing had ever happened. The only sound was the soft thudding of her own heartbeat, still rapid from the terror that had just unfolded. Her body ached, as if she had been through some kind of violent storm. Her fingers were numb, and her mind felt foggy. She couldn't remember exactly how she had gotten here, but one thing was clear, the robe was still on her. It was no longer just a garment. It was part of her. She could feel it in her bones, in her veins. "Mai." Lan croaked, her voice weak. She tried to sit up, but her body refused to cooperate. Her head swam, and the room spun around her. Then, from the corner of the room, she saw it. The same shadow that had attacked her before. It was standing in the doorway, watching her, waiting. Mai was gone. The only thing left was the cursed mourning garment. With a horrified realization, Lan understood. She wasn't the first. She wouldn't be the last. The figure in the doorway began to move toward her, its face now visible, or rather, the absence of it. It had no eyes, no mouth. Just smooth, featureless skin that seemed to swallow all light. As it reached out, Lan could hear the soft whispering again. It was familiar now, like an old friend who had come to claim her. "It's your turn now." Lan closed her eyes, her body trembling. She could feel the garment tightening around her chest once more, the same unbearable cold flooding her body. She was trapped. And so was everyone who came after her. The mourning garment had found its next victim. Ian's heart was hammering in her chest as the figure in the doorway advanced. She could feel the weight of the mourning garment tightening, suffocating her. It had been minutes, maybe hours, since she first awoke, but time felt irrelevant now. It was as if the room itself had become part of the curse, and she was merely a puppet in its play. The shadow's form grew clearer as it moved closer. It was like nothing human. A grotesque, shifting mass of darkness, its limbs elongating as if it existed beyond the constraints of the physical world. But its eyes, or what should have been eyes, were what made it truly terrifying. Empty sockets, devoid of any light, stared at Lan like they could see straight into her soul. The whispers grew louder, filling her head with incoherent thoughts, and she couldn't block them out. The words spilled into her mind, like a poison, suffocating her. "It's your turn now. Your turn to die. Your turn to wear it." But Lan fought back. She was not going to let this thing consume her like it had consumed others. She couldn't allow it to happen again, not after what had happened to Mai. She had to find a way out. Summoning the last of her strength, Lan pushed herself up from the floor, her legs trembling beneath her. The mourning garment felt like a stone weight dragging her down, but she gritted her teeth and forced herself forward. She had no plan, no idea what she was doing, but she knew she had to act. She had to find a way to destroy this thing. The figure loomed ever closer, its presence now suffocating. Its hand, a blackened, twisted thing, reached out for her, fingers curling into claws. "Get away from me!" Lan shouted, her voice raw with desperation. But the shadow did not stop. It kept coming. Then, in a fleeting moment of clarity, Lan remembered something. A strange thought, an idea buried deep within her mind. The first time she saw the robe, she hadn't known what it was, but she had seen a faint inscription sewn into the hem. It had been so subtle, so hidden that she hadn't noticed it at first. But now, the memory surfaced with horrifying clarity. The inscription. She had to find it again. Summoning every ounce of energy, Lan stumbled toward the old wooden chest in the corner of the room. She had seen it before, tucked away in the shadows, but now it held the key to her survival. She couldn't let this curse take her. She had to break it. The shadow growled from behind her, a sound like nails on a chalkboard, but Lan didn't look back. She was determined. The chest creaked as she opened it, revealing its contents, ancient relics, family heirlooms, and memories long buried. But among them, nestled under a pile of old clothes, was the robe, the mourning garment. It shimmered unnaturally in the dim light, its dark fabric almost alive, as if it were breathing. Lan could see it now, faint, almost invisible, but unmistakable. The inscription was there, sewn into the fabric in intricate thread work. It wasn't words she could read, but symbols, strange, arcane runes that glowed with a pale, sickly light. Her hands shook as she reached for the garment, and the whispers in her ears grew louder, like 1,000 voices chanting, urging her to put it on. To become part of the cycle. But she wouldn't give in. With trembling hands, Lan grabbed a small knife from the chest, its blade cold and sharp. She didn't know why, but she knew what she had to do. She needed to cut the robe, to destroy the curse that clung to it. She had no time to waste. The shadow was closing in, its claws almost grazing the back of her neck. She slashed the knife across the fabric, cutting through the threads. At first, nothing happened. The fabric resisted, as if it didn't want to be torn, but then the air around her seemed to tremble. The shadow froze. Ian's heart skipped a beat. The figure was momentarily paralyzed, as if the very act of destroying the robe's sacred weave had disrupted its power. She didn't hesitate. She slashed again, this time cutting deeper into the robe, tearing it apart. The room was filled with a piercing sound, a high-pitched screech that seemed to vibrate through her bones. The shadow hissed in agony, its form flickering and twisting as the robe began to unravel. The whispers grew frantic, desperate, urging her to stop, but Lan pushed forward. With one final, determined swipe, the robe fell apart in her hands. The shadow screamed in fury, a blood-curdling wail that reverberated through the room. But it wasn't enough. The figure lunged, its claws extended, but Lan was ready. She threw the torn remnants of the robe onto the floor, the cloth now nothing but an empty husk. The shadow recoiled as if it had been struck, and with a final, deafening screech, it dissipated into nothingness. Silence. Lan fell to her knees, her body shaking, her heart pounding. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. She had done it. She had destroyed it. The curse was broken. But as she looked at the remnants of the robe, something inside her sank. The threads of the garment were still twitching, as if alive. The whispers were gone, but the weight of the robe lingered in the air. And then, a voice, faint but unmistakable, whispered in her ear. "It's not over." Lan didn't sleep that night. She sat on the floor, the remnants of the mourning garment scattered around her like broken fragments of a nightmare. The house was silent now, but the weight of what had just happened hung heavily in the air. She had destroyed the robe, but the curse, whatever it was still there, like an insidious presence that refused to leave. Her mind kept drifting back to that final whisper, the chilling voice that had echoed in her ear. It's not over. What did it mean? What had she done? Had she truly destroyed the curse, or had she simply delayed it? Lan didn't know. She couldn't know. But one thing was certain, the robe wasn't finished with her. It would come back. It always did. As she sat there in the darkness, a chilling realization struck her. The mourning garment didn't just belong to her family. It was tied to something older, something much darker than she could ever imagine. And whoever wore it next would face the consequences. Lan glanced down at the remnants of the robe, now lifeless on the floor. But something was different. The symbols, the runes, seemed to be shifting ever so slightly, as if they were alive again, waiting for their next victim. Her heart sank as she heard the sound of footsteps approaching. The footsteps echoed in the silent room, soft but unmistakable. Lan froze, every muscle in her body tensed with a sudden surge of panic. She looked around, but there was no one. No one visible. Just the remnants of the mourning garment, crumpled and abandoned on the floor. She listened again. Tap tap, tap tap, the sound of bare feet padding softly against the wooden floorboards. The air was thick with an oppressive weight, and the shadows in the room seemed to stretch unnaturally long, reaching toward her, as if they had a life of their own. A chill ran down her spine. This couldn't be real. She had destroyed the robe. She had broken the curse, hadn't she? But then, as if the house itself was conspiring against her, a small creak sounded from behind her. Slowly, she turned her head, expecting to see the same shadowy figure from earlier, but what she saw made her blood run cold. At the doorway stood a figure. A man, or at least, what had once been a man. His face was obscured by the shadow of his wide-brimmed hat, but even in the dim light, she could see the outline of his body, a thin, gaunt frame dressed in the same mourning garment she had destroyed. Her breath caught in her throat. How? The man took a step forward, and the floorboards creaked under his weight. His movements were slow, deliberate, as though each step was measured against the very fabric of the curse. The robe he wore swayed eerily, the fabric undulating as if alive, its blackness absorbing the light around him. No, Lan whispered, a faint tremor in her voice. No. I destroyed it. I broke the curse. The figure took another step closer, his eyes still hidden beneath the brim of his hat. And then, as he drew near, he reached up and lifted his hat just slightly, enough for Lan to see his face. Her breath hitched in her chest. The face was hers. The same face, the same eyes, the same features, but aged, twisted, deformed. His skin was pale, almost corpse-like, and there were dark circles under his eyes as if he hadn't slept for centuries. His lips were drawn back into a thin, cruel smile, as if he were savoring some private joke. And then, in a voice that wasn't his own, he spoke. You think you've escaped? The words sent a shiver down Ian's spine. She tried to back away, but her legs felt like lead. She couldn't move. The shadowy figure before her felt like a weight anchoring her to the spot, preventing her from fleeing. No, Lan breathed, her voice trembling with disbelief. This can't be real. The figure tilted its head, as if amused by her fear. It's too late, Lan. You've already played your part. Now, it's someone else's turn. She shook her head. No. I won't let you do this. I'll fight you. I'll burn it all. But the figure didn't respond. Instead, it simply reached out with a long, gnarled hand, its fingers curving unnaturally long, stretching toward her with disturbing slowness. She could feel the heat of its presence, and the stench of decay filled her nostrils as it neared. In a final desperate act, Lan grabbed the knife from the floor, the same knife she had used to cut the robe. She held it out in front of her, the blade trembling in her grasp, her mind racing. She had to end this. She had to stop it before it was too late. But as her hand tightened around the hilt of the knife, the figure's fingers brushed against her arm. A sharp, searing pain shot through her, and she screamed, dropping the knife. The figure's touch was like fire, burning through her skin. She could feel the heat spreading through her veins, her muscles seizing, and her vision blurring. She tried to fight it, tried to break free, but her body wouldn't respond. And then, in the quietest of whispers, the figure spoke again. "It's too late, Lan. The robe will never die. It's a part of you now." Her vision faded, and everything around her seemed to spin. The shadows closed in, and the figure was the last thing she saw before everything went black. Lan awoke to the sound of rain pattering against the windows, the gentle rhythm almost soothing. But as her eyes fluttered open, she quickly realized something was wrong. She was lying in the same room. The same house. The same room where she had destroyed the mourning garment. But the walls were different now, faded and cracked, as though time had shifted forward. The furniture was gone, leaving only the skeletal remains of broken chairs and shattered glass. And there, lying in the corner of the room, was the robe. It was whole again. The black fabric was smooth and undisturbed, its threadwork gleaming in the dim light. And atop it, sitting quietly in the center, was the wide-brimmed hat that the figure had worn, the same hat that had concealed his face. Ian's heart skipped a beat. She pushed herself up, her body shaking with fear. She tried to call out, but no sound came from her throat. It was as if she were trapped inside a nightmare, unable to escape. Then, in the silence of the room, the whispers began again. "It's your turn. It's your turn to wear it now. It's your turn to die." Her skin crawled as the words echoed in her mind. She could feel it now, the weight of the mourning garment, pressing down on her chest, suffocating her. It was coming for her again. It would never let her go. She couldn't fight it. She couldn't escape. And in that moment, Lan understood the terrible truth. The curse was eternal. No one could ever escape. The mourning garment would keep searching for its next victim, its next wearer. And once the cycle began, it could never be broken. Lan stood in the cold room, her body trembling. The robe lay before her, waiting. Her eyes locked onto the fabric, its dark allure pulling at her with an undeniable force. She wanted to look away, to escape, but the robe's power held her captive. The air in the room felt dense, suffocating, like it was filled with something unseen, something ancient. She had to leave. She had to destroy it once and for all. But she couldn't. The fear in her chest was suffocating, and every step she took toward the door felt like wading through quicksand. She wasn't just afraid of the robe anymore, she was afraid of what would happen if she tried to resist. The whispers, faint at first, grew louder. "It's your turn, Lan." The voice was soft but insistent. "You know what has to happen." "No," she whispered, taking a step back. But her legs felt weak, as though her body wasn't her own. The whispers became a chant, filling her mind, drowning out all other thoughts. "You have to wear it. You have to wear it, or die." Ian's heart pounded as the urge to put on the robe grew stronger. She fought it, but the compulsion was overwhelming. The robe seemed to want her, calling her to it, demanding that she give in. She reached out, her fingers brushing the fabric. It was cold. Cold like death. She recoiled, gasping for breath. But it was too late. The whispers turned to a roar in her mind, deafening and unbearable. She couldn't think anymore. She couldn't breathe. It was as if the very walls of the room were closing in on her, suffocating her with the weight of something ancient and unstoppable. Lan fell to her knees, clutching her head in agony. The pain was unlike anything she had ever felt. It was as though the fabric of her mind itself was unraveling, each thread being pulled apart by the power of the robe. Through the haze of pain, she could hear footsteps. Slow, deliberate, heavy. They came from behind her, and she knew, without turning around, who it was. The figure. The man in the robe. He was back. "You can't escape, Lan," the voice whispered in her ear, cold and breathless. She felt the pressure of his presence behind her, his dark shadow swallowing the room. "You are mine now. Forever." Tears welled in her eyes as she fought to hold onto herself. She couldn't let him take her. She couldn't. She had to survive. But her strength was slipping away, the robe's curse dragging her further into its web. A sudden thought struck her. The others. Her family. Her friends. Had they all been trapped in this same cycle? Had they all been claimed by the robe, just like she was about to be? The thought sent a jolt of horror through her. She had seen them, her family, her relatives, all wearing the mourning garment in the funeral photos, their faces pale and lifeless. But now, they were more than just memories. They were part of the curse. Part of the endless cycle. And they were waiting for her. She had no time. The robe was almost on her now. With what little strength she had left, Lan pushed herself up, ignoring the searing pain in her chest. She had to get away. She had to break free. She turned to face the door, but as she did, she saw the figure step into the room, blocking her way. His face, the same twisted reflection of her own, was now fully exposed. He grinned at her, and it was a smile that held no warmth, no humanity. Just an endless hunger. "You can't outrun this, Lan," he whispered. "You are already dead." The room began to spin, the walls closing in, and the whispers became a cacophony of voices, each one screaming at her, demanding that she accept her fate. The robe. The curse. It was all-consuming, swallowing her whole. She screamed, but no sound came out. There was only the endless sound of fabric rustling, the whisper of death in the air, and the cold, dead eyes of the man who wore her face. The curse had her. Lan felt herself slipping, her body and mind unraveling, caught in the suffocating grip of the mourning garment. Every fiber of her being screamed in terror, but her voice was lost in the silence of the room. The figure, her twisted reflection, moved closer, his eyes gleaming with something cruel and ancient. There was nowhere to run. No escape. She had seen it now, the terrible truth of the robe. It didn't just claim lives. It claimed souls. And once it had touched you, once it had bound you into its cycle, there was no way out. The robe would always return. It would always find its next victim, and they would wear it, and die. Over and over again. Ian's breath grew shallow as the weight of the curse settled into her bones. She felt herself weakening, fading, becoming one with the darkness that had swallowed her. But then, amidst the panic and the terror, a single thought pierced through the fog of despair: what if I could end this? The robe, it wasn't just a piece of cursed clothing. It was a living thing, a parasite that fed on death, on grief, on fear. But if it could be destroyed, if she could somehow sever the cycle? No. She didn't have time. The figure was already reaching for her, his hands long and skeletal, like claws, ready to drag her into the abyss. But then, in a moment of clarity, Lan knew what she had to do. She had to make a choice. The robe wasn't just the tool of the curse. It was the curse. If she could burn it, if she could destroy it completely, then maybe, just maybe, the cycle could be broken. Her eyes darted around the room, and that's when she saw it, an old matchbox, half hidden under a pile of dust and debris. Desperation fueled her movements, and she grabbed it, striking the match with trembling fingers. The flame sputtered to life, casting a warm light in the otherwise cold, dark room. Without a second thought, Lan hurled the match at the robe, watching as it caught fire. The flames spread quickly, devouring the fabric, eating away at it with a ravenous hunger. The figure screamed, a sound that was more animal than human, as he tried to reach for the burning robe. But it was too late. The fire consumed the robe completely, the flames licking the air with an unnatural intensity. The figure writhed and twisted, his body twisting and distorting as the fire burned through him. In an instant, he was gone. The room fell silent. Lan stood there, gasping for breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She had done it. She had destroyed the robe. But as the smoke cleared and the last remnants of the robe turned to ash, Lan realized something horrifying. She wasn't free. The ashes of the mourning garment scattered across the floor, swirling in the air like a dark mist. And then, in the dead silence that followed, she heard it. A whisper. Soft at first, like a breath against her ear. You can never escape. The cycle was not over. It had only just begun.